The usually very noisy visitors, who liked to provoke him by banging on his fence to elicit his menacing growls and hisses, were very hard to bear. Despite this, he was one of the zoo's biggest attractions, with crowds of people constantly thronging around his enclosure. Everyone was fascinated by his intimidating jaws, which he could open to an astonishing extent. The poor wretch lived in squalid conditions. The zoo staff didn't take the best care of him, but this was the Great Depression time, so the people of Hobart couldn't afford to maintain a zoo full of exotic animals. Benjamin was given less meat each night, his enclosure became neglected, and they often forgot to unlock his sleeping den, leaving him outside in the cold for whole nights. He nearly froze to death, especially during the harsh Tasmanian winter. While the zoo ignored Benjamin's failing health, the authorities stopped turning a blind eye to the fact that they had completely wiped out Tasmanian tigers in the wild. Even in zoos in other parts of the world, most of the specimens had already died, so the task of obtaining photographic and video material of the very last tiger has fallen entirely to BEAUMARIS Zoo. In 1935, Sidney Cook, a cameraman for the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia, made a 21-second film of Benjamin walking around the enclosure. The following text was added to the clip.
The Tasmanian tiger, easily distinguished by his straight, unjointed tail, is also a dangerous opponent, though, like the devil, is now very rare, being forced out of its natural habitat by the march of civilization. This is the only one in captivity in the world.
For some reason, Cook's footage was lost in the Australian Film Archives, only to resurface in 2020. In May 1936, a young photographer called Ben Sheppard visited BEAUMARIS Zoo with the sole purpose of photographing the last surviving Tasmanian tiger. He took just one photo, but it quickly became famous. Today it is one of the most widely shown and reproduced images of a Tasmanian tiger ever captured. Later, it turned out that Ben Sheppard was also the last person Benjamin posed for. On the 10th of July 1936, Thylacinus cynocephalus was finally given official protection by the Tasmanian government. But of course, the awakening came very late. Just 59 days later, on the night of 6 to 7 September, at the height of Tasmania's coldest winter in a century, the last surviving Tasmanian tiger died of hypothermia because his sleeping den had been locked again. His carcass was sent to the local Hobart Museum, where it was decided to keep only the skeleton and skin. The fate of the organs remains a mystery, but it is highly likely that they ended up at the Institute of Anatomy in Canberra. The sad news of Benjamin's death initially received little media coverage and was only reported in one morning newspaper. No one really believed that he was the last of his kind. They hoped that after a few years of no hunting, these amazing beasts would increase in numbers, and everything would be back to normal. It must have taken decades without a credible sighting for Tasmanians to realize that the magnificent creature they had also chosen as the symbol of their state coat of arms and the official logos of the Tasmanian government, had in fact been eliminated from the face of the earth. It seemed a shame that no more attention had been paid to Benjamin. Many years later, the authorities decided to give more importance to the day of his death. Since 1996, Australia has celebrated National Threatened Species Day on the 7th of September, to highlight the importance of native animals and plants that are unfortunately struggling to survive. In 2021, the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia marked the day in a very special way. On the 85th anniversary of Benjamin's passing, they released a 1 minute and 14-second colorized version of Flea's famous 1933 film, the longest footage ever recorded of a live Tasmanian tiger. Credit for the colorization goes to French film producer Samuel François-Steininger. The demanding process of transforming what was a very short film took more than 200 hours, but Benjamin undoubtedly deserved such an honor.